Today's episode of America Unfiltered with James Pascalides. We'll talk about topics like the cartels and how the U.S. is about to take them out. We'll talk about topics like Tulsi Gabbard. We'll talk about the Wuhan lab and how they started the coronavirus, and much more coming up on America Unfiltered, episode 18 with James Pascalides, starting now.
The moment is here. This is our moment.
We are back, baby. Welcome to another episode of America Unfiltered with James Pascalides. This is episode 18. I already talked to you guys about my topics a little today. It's Friday. Happy Friday. It will be a short episode today. But to dive right into things today, I want to start with talking about huge news. The White House has officially today confirmed 100% that the COVID-19 virus did come from a lab in Wuhan, China. This is something that many Americans and a lot of conservatives have known for a long time, almost since the origins of COVID when Donald Trump floated this idea out there, and since we found out that there was a coronavirus lab in Wuhan, China. I don't know how there was a lot of speculation around this, considering that like I said, there was a coronavirus lab in Wuhan, China. That was the name of it. So I think it was almost obvious. I think like I said, the majority of Americans kind of already knew this or had some sort of an idea. But to get official confirmation from the White House, it's really amazing, because for years you were called a bigot, a racist, a conspiracy theorist for floating the idea out that that this was a man-made virus from China, that this came from a lab leak in China. This is kind of where the whole Stop Asian Hate thing came from as well. They said that people were being racist towards Asians because of this. But again, time and time again, it proves that these conspiracy theories, or whatever they want to keep calling them, are correct. That the American people are correct, that Donald Trump was correct, and the media was wrong. The media, specifically CNN, MSNBC, and the liberal media, continuously lied to the American people, continuously pushed the agenda that no, this was not a lab leak. I forget what they said, something about someone eating a bat or something. But no, again, time and time again, proven right. Proven that the liberal media is lying to you, and that the independent news sources and Donald Trump has continuously been telling the truth. And he wasn't doing it to try and throw it in the liberal media's face that he was right. He was doing it to try and help the American people, and that's what he continuously does. And the liberal media just continuously tried to drag him down. They painted him out to be a racist, a bigot, and all these terrible things because Trump had a problem with China and still does. And the problem is that China is pouring their fentanyl in this country. China started the pandemic. China is continuously allowing their nationals to buy up our farmland and continuously having spy operations in our country. There was recently, over the last few months, someone in our government found that their longtime girlfriend or spouse or whatever it was a Chinese spy. So this is a continuous problem with China that we have, and the liberal media loves to paint it like there's not a problem, like China is not doing anything wrong and that America is doing things wrong. I think that's terrible and despicable for the American media to depict Americans in a poorer way than the Chinese. Like I said, I think the fact that China got away with starting this pandemic and we haven't put any sanctions, any tariffs, I don't know. The fact that we just let it happen like that because of Joe Biden's weakness is despicable to me. I'm very glad that Trump's White House was able to confirm this today, and I'm excited to see the impact this has going into next week and the next few weeks. I know the tariff delays. So the tariffs were supposed to take place for Mexico, Canada, and China for 25% tariffs starting February 1st. Those got pushed back today as well, 1 month. So those will now be taking place on March 1st. This is because Trump is in talks with those countries. Like I've said in previous episodes and things I support, Trump is trying to make Canada the 51st state. I think that would be an amazing idea for Canada, for America, and for trade. I also support the idea of making Mexico the 52nd state after Canada. One good way to solve the immigration problem in one day and solve the cartel problem in a day is making Mexico the 52nd state. If you make Mexico the 52nd state after Canada, we make some kind of universal passport like they have in Europe where you can go through South America and North America. Not only, like I said, will it solve the immigration crisis basically in a day, it will also boost the economy of all the countries. It would make America a way stronger country, and it would benefit the lives of countless Mexican and Canadians. I really think that patriotism and I just really think what we have going on in America makes us the greatest country in the world. I really think the idea of being able to build the business you want to build, be the person you want to be, and the continuous opportunity to be able to succeed in this country is one of the things that makes America the land of the free and the greatest country on earth. America, time and time again, proves that we are not only the strongest country in the world, but we are the land of opportunity. We have the most legal and illegal immigration in the country or in the world, and that's because not everybody, but the majority of people want to come to America. They want to experience what America has to offer, the freedom, the food, the people, the entertainment, the sports, just the vast things America has to offer that are so great is why people want to come to this country. So, like I said before, I really think that America and China, I think there's huge problems between the two. I love that Donald Trump is taking this firm stance that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris didn't. I think it's amazing for the American people, and I think it brings dominance and patriotism back to the country. And like I said, as more information comes out about what Trump decides to do, now that they've confirmed that the virus did come from the Wuhan lab, I will keep you guys updated. But I want to pop this clip up for you guys of the press secretary talking to the American people about it.
I also would just like to point out that several years ago when I was working in this press shop and President Trump would take to this podium to brief the American people on COVID-19, he suggested that COVID very well may have came from a lab in Wuhan, China. And many members in this very room mocked him for that, said he was spewing conspiracy theories. He was not. We now know that to be the confirmable truth. It took many years for it to come out, but the president was right in this instance again. Sure.
It's just so reassuring to finally have a press secretary who actually cares about the American people and not only cares about her own self-image and the image of the president. So this secretary obviously has put forth a lot of new steps to make the American people felt listened to. The new media seat's a big one where they're allowing new media podcasts and things like that into the media room. Today they had someone in the new media seat as well from a podcast in the USA. They started their podcast, I think, 4 years ago or so, and they're one of the top podcasts in the nation. So I love what they're doing with the new media seat. I love what they're doing in the press room. I think the press secretary, like I said, is an excellent pick by Donald Trump. To get back into what we were saying earlier, I really think that America not only needs to, like I said, adopt Canada as a country, but I think Mexico too. And like I talked about how it would solve a lot of the immigration crisis, I think it would put a lot of strain on the cartels as well. The cartels would fail to operate in an American-style government or an American-style system. The reason the cartels are able to operate the way they are is because the Mexican government is so corrupt. The Mexican government continuously allows the cartels to operate the way they do because the Mexican cartels are funding the government. Not only are they funding the government, but they're threatening them with violence, kidnapping, rape, murder, extortion, all these terrible things. So I'm very glad that not only is Trump taking a hard stance against the cartels, but I do think if we were able to make Mexico a part of America, that it would immediately put that to a stop. But beyond that, I want to play a clip for you guys of the new defense secretary, Peter Hegseth, and I want you to see him talk about the cartels. And I've already talked about this a little bit with you guys, but this is a new clip where he's talking about the possible intervention of America in Mexico with the cartels now that they're named terrorist organizations around the world by Donald Trump.
The drug cartels have been declared terrorist organizations. And if you find that, and we know if there's Al Qaeda, we're going to hit them. I don't care if you're in Somalia, Sudan, or in Syria. If we find that they continue to fire at our border control and they continue to put fentanyl into our country, as the Secretary of Defense, are you permitted now to go after them in Mexico or wherever they are?
Brian, I don't want to get ahead of the president, and I won't. That's ultimately going to be his decision. But let me be clear, all options will be on the table. If we're dealing with what are designated to be foreign terrorist organizations who are specifically targeting Americans on our border, and we're finally securing our border. We've been securing other people's border for a very long time. The military is shifting toward an understanding of homeland defense on our sovereign territorial border. That is something we will do and do robustly. So I've
already talked about this topic a lot, so I'm not going to dive too far into it right now. You guys already know where I stand on immigration and on this stuff. I really agree with what he's doing. I think the American government and military should be more interactive with the cartels. I think we should be going at the cartels as much as we can. Like I've said in previous episodes, after they shot at Border Patrol agents, I almost agree with sending a small missile in to take out head cartel members. As long as there would be no civilian deaths, and the American government could guarantee that, I would love to send a missile in. I would love to do what we can to remove the cartels from this earth, because they're the scum of this earth. The cartels rape, kill, and torture. And it's not like torture as in you'd think in a military style. They'll skin people to death and then pour gasoline on their skin bodies and then burn them alive. They'll do terrible, graphic, disgusting things to people just to get their way. They'll do these terrible things if people snitch on them. They'll do these terrible things to keep people in line. They'll do these terrible things if people steal from them. Again, I think the cartels are some of the worst groups and organizations, terrorist organizations in this world. I'm very glad that Donald Trump is not only putting the American people first, but the people of the world first, and saying he is going to label them as terrorist organizations and take them out. He will bring military intervention into Mexico if needed. So I'm very excited about this. I really think the defense secretary is a strong pick by Donald Trump. And I think Donald Trump has done a great job of a lot of strong picks. It's been very surprising to a lot of us as well on the conservative side, but the majority of Donald Trump's cabinet are former liberals from 10 years ago, including Donald Trump. Donald Trump used to be a liberal. Most people don't remember that. He still is one of the more liberal conservative presidents there is. But then again, you have Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, RFK. These are all the liberals of 10 years ago who are now joining the Republican Party because they realize that the Democrats and liberals have become very delusional over the last 4 years, that they have allowed nonsense into our country, and we want to take our country back. We want to make America great again. We want to be the strongest country in the world. We want to be the leader in freedom, independence, economics, and all these things. And under the Democrats, that seems pretty hard to do. But with a strong leader like Donald Trump, it doesn't seem like it's an impossible goal, and it seems like it's something that America's on track for again. Tulsi Gabbard had her confirmation hearing today, and I want to play some clips for you guys from it. So this is clips from Tulsi Gabbard's confirmation hearing. We're going to play 2 of them, and then we'll talk about them.
Now, before I close, I want to warn the American people who are watching at home. You may hear lies and smears in this hearing that'll challenge my loyalty to and my love for our country. Those who oppose my nomination imply that I am loyal to something or someone other than God, my own conscience, and the Constitution of the United States. Accusing me of being Trump's puppet, Putin's puppet, Assad's puppet, a guru's puppet, Modi's puppet, not recognizing the absurdity of simultaneously being the puppet of 5 different puppet masters. The same tactic was used against President Trump and failed. The American people elected President Trump with a decisive victory and mandate for change. The fact is, what truly unsettles my political opponents is I refuse to be their puppet. I have no love for Assad or Gaddafi or any dictator. I just hate Al-Qaeda. So
this is Tulsi's opening statement of her confirmation hearing. I'm going to play another clip from you guys, but I just wanted to talk about that for a second with you. I think Tulsi is an American patriot. Not only did Tulsi serve our country, but Tulsi Gabbard, she wants to put the American people first. To make the change from Democrat to conservative is a huge leap, specifically in a post-COVID world, today's day and age. I really think there's a lot of stigma behind making that switch, and the fact that she was able to so comfortably and confidently make that switch, and she did it because of her own morals and personal beliefs. She did it because, like I said, the Democratic Party has gotten extremely radical. They have introduced violence into this country, and they have called it peaceful protest. They have done terrible, terrible things to this country. They have allowed the sex trafficking of over 300,000 kids. The Hollywood left, most of them are friends with P. Diddy. There's a lot of terrible things that are happening with Democrats and liberals in this nation, and I love that Tulsi Gabbard took such a firm stance against it and switched side to the conservative movement. Not only is she an extremely smart woman and extremely talented, but like I said, she's an American patriot. So she deserves all of our respect, in my opinion. I want to play this other clip from you guys as well. This is one of my favorite clips. We'll dig into it a little bit right after, but I'm going to pop it up for you guys right now.
Here are just a few other examples. The American people elected Donald Trump as their president not once but twice, and yet the FBI and intelligence agencies were politicized by his opponents to undermine his presidency and falsely portray him as a puppet of Putin. Title I of FISA was used illegally to obtain a warrant to spy on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, using a Clinton campaign-funded false dossier as their so-called evidence. Biden campaign advisor Tony Blinken was the impetus for the 51 former senior intelligence officials' letter dismissing Hunter Biden's laptop as disinformation specifically to help Biden win the election. Former DNI James Clapper lied to this committee in 2013, denying the existence of programs that facilitated the mass collection of millions of Americans' phone and internet records, yet was never held accountable. Under John Brennan's leadership, the CIA abused its power to spy on Congress, to dodge oversight, lied about doing it until he was caught, and yet has never been held responsible. Under Biden, the FBI abused its power for political reasons to try to surveil Catholics who attend traditional Latin Mass, labeling them as quote-unquote radical traditionalist Catholics. Personally, just 24 hours after I criticized Kamala Harris and her nomination, I was placed on a secret domestic terror watch list called Quiet Skies. Sadly, there are more examples. The bottom line is this must end.
I love how the Democrats, for almost years during the last presidential election, over the last couple years of Biden's term, when him and Trump were duking it out for the presidency, they kept saying, Trump, you're going to use your political power against your political opponents. You're not going to hold your friends responsible for things, and you're going to take all your political opponents, you're going to try and put them in jail, try and punish them in some way. But Tulsi Gabbard is right there in front of the Senate calling out every time the liberals have done that. The times they just let people get away with things because they were aligned with the Senate, with their political ideologies or whatever it was, and they just allow them to get away with lying to the Senate, lying to the American people, which, terrible. It's terrible that as Americans, that our government is allowed to get away with things like that. It's terrible that it takes someone like Tulsi Gabbard to call that out, and it takes someone like Donald Trump to get in office to make all this be able to happen, to make America be able to call out all this and get back to normal. I'm so glad that Donald Trump's in office, because just picturing the idea right now of Kamala Harris having won the election, more illegals pouring in this country, more DEI contracts, less money for the government, less money for the American taxpayers, less money for emergency disaster relief, but more money for Ukraine. So, I think we're in such a better place now under Donald Trump than we could have or ever would have been under Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. I think Tulsi Gabbard, like I said, is an excellent pick, who is willing to stand up against the media, stand up against politicians, stand up against our own government, and let them know that we're not going to allow the continuous weaponization of our justice system. We're not going to allow the continuous spread of misinformation. We're not going to allow you to spy on Americans. We're not going to allow you to spy on Donald Trump, spy on Americans, label Americans as terrorists or extremists for going to church. Millions of Americans go to church every single Sunday, and it's a beautiful thing. And the fact that you're labeled as an extremist or a radical or whatever they want to call you, or put you on any kind of list for, praying to your Lord and going to your church's service, that's an abomination. That goes against everything this country stands for and was founded on. This country was founded on freedom of religion and freedom to express those views in your First Amendment. So for our government to have such overreach, to not only spy on Americans who are attending religious service, but to document their names, their whereabouts, put them on a list saying that they are an extremist in this country, what is our government doing? What kind of overreach and overstepping is this? And why are they putting Tulsi Gabbard on a list because she's questioning Kamala's presidency or Kamala's presidential campaign? Everyone questioned Kamala's presidential campaign. Even most Democrats with common sense questioned it because she was the first presidential candidate to not win a primary. Democrats love to talk about how Trump doesn't love democracy and all this, which he does, but the Democrats literally did not hold a primary. The one thing you're supposed to do when you're putting up a presidential candidate is give the American people the right to decide who that candidate is. When Joe Biden in his debate was proven to have the dementia that we all knew he had for years, or the Alzheimer's, or whatever it is that's making him slow, they immediately just propped Kamala up, and they were like, "Oh, you're a DEI candidate. This would be perfect. You could go win this. You're a strong black woman." Kamala Harris is an idiot. Kamala Harris has little to no common sense. Her number one quote is to be unburdened by what has been. Kamala Harris does not know what she's doing. She would have been a wreck for this country. She would have not only continued to push more Americans into poverty, she would have continued to directly overspend with our government, directly get us into more interventions with China, with Ukraine, with other countries. She was the border czar, yet she let in 10 million illegal immigrants. Kamala said, I'm going to do all these things while she was sitting in the White House, and she could have done them. So Kamala was allowing the country to continuously go down a path where she was saying out loud, it is hurting. And she didn't say it was hurting until it was time for her to run for president, and Joe Biden had stepped out. So when she was saying, it's hurting, these are the things we should fix, but she was sitting in the White House next to an incompetent Joe Biden, why didn't she fix these things? These are the questions that I would love a direct answer to. And I think the majority of American people would love a direct answer to as well. But why are you sitting in the White House telling us all the problems and not fixing any of them? Why are you addressing the fact that there are 10 million illegals who cross the border, yet you didn't stop it and you allowed it to happen? Why are you allowing these cities to become sanctuary cities and host illegal immigrants at the American taxpayers' expense? There was screenshots of illegal immigrant families who had over $15,000 in food stamps, and that's just for food. And then they also had housing, they had other things given to them by the government. But for that to happen, yet your normal American in poverty, your average veteran who's in poverty on food stamps, can only get a few $100s a month? Are you kidding me? This is the kind of BS that the American people are so upset over, that I'm so upset over, and that we're so glad that Donald Trump has taken office. Because like Tulsi Gabbard pointed out in her confirmation hearing, the Democratic Party and just our government in general is extremely corrupt, and politicians have made it that way. So it's about time, like I said in my last episode, that a businessman who is not only a brilliant businessman, but someone who has built multiple businesses is behind the wheel of America, the biggest business in the world. So, like I said, I fully support Donald Trump. I'm very glad he's there, and he's making excellent cabinet picks and excellent picks for the government. Another one of those, which I've talked about before, but I'll talk about again now, is Elon Musk. Elon Musk is heading up the Department of Government Efficiency. In the last 11 days since Donald Trump has been in office, they have cut over $1 billion in annual spending from federal government contracts, specifically surrounding DEI. $1 billion a year in DEI, and that's the tip of the iceberg. We're 11 days in. This is ridiculous. And this was all done by the Kamala Harris and Joe Biden regime. This is disgusting that it was allowed. It's disgusting that the American taxpayers have been funding this for over 4 years, and that Democrats have been okay with this, and the media has been spinning it and lying to the American people. They're blowing it out of proportion what Trump's doing to make it look bad, but they're not talking about the fact that Democrats have continuously been spending money, and they are continuously making this country into a poorer, weaker country. Joe Biden was the weakest president we had, and every country, every elected official around the world, every dictator knew that. It's the entire reason that the Russia war started. They saw that Joe Biden was weak. They knew that America's intervention in it would mean nothing. So what is Putin going to do? He's going to go take Ukraine. He didn't do that under Trump, even though he threatened to, and then Trump threatened his pipeline. So immediately, he stopped. And same thing with all these other countries. Any country that threatened war on another country during President Trump's first term, he immediately stopped it. He stopped it with the threat of coercion or violence. And I think that's what a strong president is in a country like America. We are the strongest country in the world, and we need to stay that way. American dominance is what makes us the greatest country in the world. I love this country. I love America. This is episode 18 of America Unfiltered with James Pascalides. I'm going to sign off today. I hope you all have a blessed day and a blessed weekend. I'll see you guys Monday.